Okay, welcome to the first of 4 online video lectures for the NJK Sailing Center's Blue Track. We'll do one every Monday in May, and then in June hopefully we'll be able to start sailing again. But today I'll focus on starting tactics and upwind tactics, go through that, and then in future videos I'll be talking about crew roles, crew work, maneuvers, and so forth, and hopefully you'll be able to learn something new in each video. And starting tactics, at least, and starts overall, I think it's very important for you guys to learn, because many of you are probably quite comfortable in the boat already with the maneuvers and just getting around the course and so forth. But the starts, we haven't practiced much starts with you as far as I know, so you're not quite familiar with the small tips and tricks that you have, or the small keys that you have to use to get a good start or take a good start. And today we'll be talking about fleet racing starts, not match racing. Once you get a little bit better or get more into match racing, then you'll get to practice that more. But in the Blue Track, we focus on fleet racing, and that's what I'm best at as well. So that's what we're focusing on. And I'll be giving some tips for big fleets, especially. That's what most of the theory is about, bigger fleets, but I'll try to adapt them for smaller fleets, which you'll be sailing here in Finland mostly with 8 boats or less in the sailing center, or maybe at the Finnish Sailing League it'll be a maximum of 8 boats. So I'll try to focus on the smaller fleet as well, but it's gonna be adaptable for any kind of fleet. But let's look at starting. So we have some important things that you need to think about before the start. And one thing is to choose where to start. That's the first thing you need to know. And I've written down a couple of pointers on how to choose where to start. So let's write it down. Fuck that. So you have a couple of ways to choose where to start. First one is check the line bias. Is the line biased to one side? So if this is the starting line, we have the wind coming from up here. Is one side more towards the wind than the other, or is it completely straight? And now, if we have a line that is skewed towards or biased towards the boat end, then that's where you want to start. If the boat end is higher up, that means that if you start there, you'll be in front of the people who are starting in the pin end, because you'll be going a higher course and those here will be behind. And one way to check the line bias is to go to the starting line. If we have the boat end here, that is the pin end. We have the pin end here, going like this, and then we have the boat end here. And what you can do is sail from one end of the line. So let's say you're sailing from the boat end, and then you'll check which direction you're able to sail in. So if your angle, your close hold angle towards the wind is more away, straight up from the line, than towards the pin end, then that's where you want to start. But if your angle that you'll be able to drive or sail is more pointing towards the pin end, like that, then you'll want to start from the pin end. And this can be done from either side of the course. and you'll always want to start from the end that you get the larger angle towards the line from. So if we say you're going up in a 45-degree angle like this, we say we have 45. It's hard to write like this. That's not a 4. 45 degrees like that. It's really hard to read, but yeah, 45 degrees like that. Then the line is straight, or what we consider straight. It doesn't matter from which end you start. But if the angle is greater than 45 degrees, then that's the end that you want to start in from. So here, let's say we have 60 degrees, then that's where you want to start. If it's less than 45, you want to start from the other end. And then we have another way of choosing which end we want to start from. So let's draw another line. We have the line here, boat end, pin end. We have the line like that. What you can do is put yourself in the middle of the line like that. Point your bow straight towards the wind so that you have the sails flapping in the middle of the boat. And then you can just look at your bow towards which end of the line is it pointing. If the bow in that case is pointing towards the boat end, that's where you want to start. If it's pointing towards the pin end, that's where you want to start. All right. Then that's one way that now you know which end of the line that is biased. But that's not necessarily, it's not always the end of the line where you want to start. Or in the case that the line is completely straight, how do you know where you want to start? Another thing to check is if the course is biased. Is the course skewed to one side, or is one side much more windy than the other side? So we have a straight line, we have the upwind mark. Is the upwind mark far right, then you won't want to be starting from the left, because the pin end is further away from the upwind mark. Then you'll want to be starting from here. All right. All right, so we've gone through how you know where to start in case that the line is biased to one side, it's not straight. And the case that the line is straight, but the upwind mark is far to one side, then it's still quite straightforward to know where you should start. But what if the organizers have managed to put a completely straight line, completely straight course? How do you know where you want to start? Then the most important factor to choosing where you want to start is which side of the course you want to go. So say you want to go to the right side of the course. There's a big wind area out there to the right, which you want to reach. Then you'll be wanting to start at the boat end, because then you'll have an easy route out of here, and then you can make a tack and get out to that side as the first boat. Whereas if you start from the pin end out here, you start here, but you want to go right, you're very, very far from that good side, from that stronger wind, and you have a whole fleet of boats in your way who force you to keep going straight and make sure you can't tack. So most of the times you'll want to start from the side to which you want to go later on the upwind. It's rarely functional to start from, say, the left and go to the right, or start from the right and go to the left. That's a difficult one. Now let's talk about how you actually manage to start. at that position where you decided that you want to start. So you've decided, okay, I want to start at the boat end. How do you do that? And now all these pointers that I have here on my computer, instead of writing them down here on the paper and showing you, I'll just be sending them out to you as well, so you can read them while you're watching this video, or then afterwards whenever you forget what to do. So how to handle the boat in the start. Once again, let's draw the starting line with a pin end, a boat end like that. Now say we have a fleet of boats. One there, another one there. Okay, we have a fleet of boats. Now if you want to start here, in between these boats, there's a pretty nice gap. Now, what's important to remember when you choose your spot? So now, if you choose to go into this spot, one important factor for how you'll manage to start or get out of the starting line once the signal comes is that you want to be as far away as possible from the leeward boat. So you want to be as far away from this boat as possible. Because if you're very close to the leeward boat here, you won't have any space to accelerate downwards once you want to gain the speed and go away. And you'll have a very pressured situation on the upwind as well, and they'll have an easy task to point you out and force you to fall behind and eventually tack. And then, but the opposite applies for the windward boat. You want to be as close as possible to the windward boat, which simultaneously makes the gap towards the leeward boat larger. Because if you are close to the windward boat here, then you will be the one pressuring them to take a bad start, forcing them to tack away, and you have all the room you need on the leeward side to take the acceleration you need and just get a good start. So that's very important. Now, what I like to do in the start, an important factor for not getting locked out of the start at the boat end here, is to know where the ley line to the starting line is, and the ley line here at the pin end. Now, if you find yourself in between these lines, you will surely not be squeezed out of the starting line, unless you're really close to this and you have someone coming with speed from below who can pressure you out of there by pointing you higher than your proper course. But try to stay in between these lines, between the ley lines, because then no one will be able to squeeze you out of the starting line, and stay above this pin and ley line, which goes here, because then you'll know you'll get up to the line and you won't miss the line. So that's just a simple tip to actually hit the line and not be forced out of it. Then, especially if you're a little late and you want to find your spot on the line, what I like to do is come sailing on port from here. So you come on port with speed, come in, and then when you find your gap, you'll have an easy job to go into it if you come on port, because you'll come with more speed and the guys in the gap will have less time to prevent you from coming there and fight for the spot. Whereas if you come on starboard from here, they'll see you coming from afar, and they'll have all the time to close their gap. If they're up here, they'll be able to turn their bow down, close their gap, and then when you've passed and haven't had a chance to come into the gap, they can just turn up, glide a little bit backwards, and keep their spot nice and clean. So that's one thing that I like to do. And now we kind of got into defending your spot on the line. So let's say you have a gap here. You are two boats quite far from each other. Now let's just twist the paper a little bit. This is horrible. But let's say someone's trying to come in from somewhere. Say you're going on starboard like this, standing still, or almost still, not completely still, because you'll have no control of the boat if you're completely still. So always have a little bit of speed. And now when someone comes from here, looks to place themselves in between these two boats and you're the upper one, you'll want to turn your bow down without gaining too much speed. Bow down like this to close the gap, and then once they realize, okay, they can't come in there, it's too small the gap, they won't be able to get a good start from there, then you want to turn back really fast. You can even do a tack, that's what we call a double tack. If you tack away, you've turned your boat down here like this, then you go back, you tack, and then you tack back immediately to get back to this same spot where you were originally. That's a very good way to defend your spot, or the simple way, just the basics. And now when you're doing a double tack, what you want to think about is how do you turn the boat without gaining too much speed and going over the line. So now we need to understand how the sails work. So we have the main and the jib, and the main, it sits behind the keel, and the keel can be thought of the pivot of the sailing boat, of the yacht. So whatever you do, the boat will always twist around the keel, and because the mainsail is behind the keel, when you pull in the mainsail, the boat will turn the stern around the keel, which means the sail will push the stern downwind here, which means that the bow turns upwind there. So pull the mainsail in, shit that in, the boat will turn upwind. Now push the mainsail out in lighter conditions, that is. If you try to push the mainsail in heavier winds, you'll just not be able to do it. But push the mainsail in, pull the mainsail, bow turns up. Push the mainsail, bow turns down. The opposite applies for the jib. So pull the jib in, the bow turns down. Loosen the jib, it won't really turn anywhere, but it will stop the turning down, which is important though. If you want to do a double tack, you need a little bit of speed, which you should always have, and then you want to pull in the mainsail to make the boat turn upwind. Then once you've turned over the straight to wind, you can either pull in the jib on the new side, or you can oversheet the jib to the old side, so that it is on the wrong side of the boat, and then it will very effectively push the bow down. Then you'll need to ease the jib early enough to be able to turn the boat back again. And then you just repeat the process. You pull in the mainsail again, and it will turn upwind once again and do do the second tack. So that's a good tool to be able to use, and it's really important to understand how the sails function and what they do to the angle of the boat. And another important factor to handling the boat is the heeling of the boat. So if we heel the boat to leeward, let's say the boat wind is coming from the camera, you heel your boat to windward, not to leeward, the boat will try to turn up. And the opposite applies if you turn or heel the boat to windward. So if you want to do a tight turn down, you want to heel the boat to windward and get the weight a little bit further back. You want to ease the main sheet, tighten the jib, and that's how you get the boat to turn down. The opposite applies to turning the boat up towards the wind. Then you'll want to heel the boat to leeward, pull in the main sheet, and don't pull too much jib on. You need some jib to get the speed, to gain the speed or keep the speed. But you can't oversheet the jib, because then it won't turn up as effectively. And now this is important to understand the heeling. If you need to bow down and go behind someone's stern on the upwind, if you're coming on port and you have a starboard boat approaching you, you'll need to go behind their back. Now, if you try to just turn down in heavier conditions without doing anything to the sheets, you'll realize that you're pulling the rudder, but nothing's happening, because the boat is gaining so much power from the pulling of the rudder and turning the bow down that it starts heeling a lot, and that heeling forces the boat to try to turn upwind. So that won't budge. So you need to ease the sheets. You need to ease both sheets, most probably, if it's really heavy conditions, so that the boat doesn't heel that much, so it is able to turn down. All right. So now we've gone through how to choose where to start by first checking the line bias, then checking which side of the course you want to go to, which you do either by checking which side of the course the upwind mark is, or which side has more wind, or if there are some persistent shifts on the course. And these things, choosing which side of the course you should go to or you want to go to, should be checked before the start, like 5, 10, 20 minutes before the start. Do an upwind run, check which side of the course is better. Take a friend, another crew. One boat goes to the right, one tack, another boat goes to the left, one tack. And then you'll know which side is better. And to kick that up notch, you can have one boat playing the shifts in the middle and see what works the best. Mm-hmm. And then you'll know. So we still have one thing to go through regarding the starts, which is, what if you don't succeed in your start? You have a plan, you try to execute it, but inevitably sometimes you don't manage and you fail the start and you take a bad start. What do you do then? Now the really great sailors, they don't take good starts every time, but they are up there in the top of the fleet at the finish in most of the races. And that is because they manage to sail well even with a bad start, because their starts aren't that bad even when they're bad. So they can fuck it up completely, but they can get out okay. So the start is not only about getting off the line really quickly, pinpointing that timing to the line. It is mostly about getting out in a free lane and being able to sail your strategy as planned. So you might fuck it up, you fall behind straight away after start, but then it's really, really important to find your way out. Find a free lane, which you most usually will do by doing a tack. So you take a bad start. We have a small starting line up here. Like this. So let's say you take a bad start from here. You have a lot of boats in front of you and you're in their bad air. You want to get out of their bad air. What you'll most likely have to do is do a tack, go the other way. That doesn't mean that when you tack away, you've originally planned to go to the left side of the course, that you would be going to the complete opposite side of the course, going to the right side. That's not what we're going for. You want to get out of that bad spot, find your free lane, and then get back to your original plan as fast as possible. So let's say you want to go left, you take a bad start, find a gap, tack away, find your free lane that is going to the left, and then you will be back on track with your original plan. So you do a tack back when you have a free lane, keep going with your original plan. And that's what great sailors do. They realize really early that they are failing, and they are the first one to find the plan B lane to their original plan. Because in every start there are a lot of people that do not get a good start, and they are all looking for that second chance lane to get back to their original plan. And if you're the first one to realize and grab that opportunity, then you'll be doing pretty good. So realize as early as possible when you're about to fuck up the start and try to get out of there. You can even realize before the start that, okay, I'm in a bad position, I won't be able to take a good start from here. Bail from your spot, take a tack, and then just go behind everyone's sterns, and you'll be the first one out to clean air from the guys who took a bad start, and then you'll be okay. And that reminds me of one thing, that if you are on the starting line, this is someone else, then we have you. Now this back corner on the leeward side, right here, this is an okay spot to be, but switch that to being in the back corner on the windward side. That is not a good spot to be. So we do not want to be here, because if you're here on the windward side and behind, you will not be able to take a good start, because you don't have the space you need to accelerate, and they will have a very, very easy task to make sure you do not get a good start. But from here you can accelerate and go past them on here. So that's okay. So if you're on the windward side, you need to be at least as far forward, or at least as close to the line as the leeward boat of you. But if you are on the leeward side, you can be a bit further back. And one important thing on crowded lines is that you do not want to go side to wind when you try to accelerate. You want to accelerate in as little space as possible and as little time as possible. So you just want to turn the boat a little below the close hold angle and gain your speed, then go upwind. You want to make it as small the maneuver as possible, because then you'll be able to start from tight spots, and you will make it harder for the ones on your windward side to start, because if they are used to going all the way side to wind when they are accelerating, but you're stubbornly standing in that same position, not reaching, then they won't have the space they think they have, and they'll either be forced to slow down, or then you will force them over the line. All right, that was it for the starts. Now I'll talk about the upwinds and the first minute of the upwind, and then the corner situations, and then a little bit about fleet control, what you can do if you're in the lead. So the first minute after the start, you really want to be focusing only on your speed and sticking to your plan and making sure you don't fall back into bad air. And then after 1 minute, you'll find that a lot of boats have tacked away. They have fallen back in bad air. There's gonna be a lot more space on the course to execute the plan that you have in mind. And the main task on the upwind is really to sail in clean air, stick to your plan, and do not improvise. Because once you start improvising, that will often lead to you doing way too many tacks and not committing to one side enough. And why I want you to commit to one side, what I mean by that is not going just one tack to one side. I want you to choose a side, go there, and play the shifts on that side of the course. You still want to take the shifts, hit the gusts, and so forth, but you do not want to play the middle. You don't want to be in the middle of the course, because if you are in the middle of the course, you will lose on every shift there is, because shifts work so that the boat that is further towards the side that the wind shifts to is the one who gains. So we have two boats sailing here. This boat is further to the right. Yeah. Now if we have the wind here, it's straight, then the wind shifts to the right like this. Then the boat on further to the right side of the course will be the one gaining, because the situation after this, after the wind shift, will be looking like this. And now you can see that the right side boat, they're not quite going in the same direction, but that's not the point. But the boat that is further to the right is clearly in front of this one, whilst here it looks kind of equal. This one is probably a little bit further in front, but because it is further to the left, the right shift is a negative thing for that boat. And the same works the other way around. And now if you are in the middle of the course, you'll always have boats on both sides of you. So there are always some boats that you'll lose against, whichever way the wind shifts. So on every single shift, you will be losing. But that's a different story when you're in the lead. Then you might want to be a little bit further to the middle, because that's just playing it safer, but we'll get to that soon. First I want to talk about the corner situations on the upwind. So we have the course, the upwind mark, and then you have done your upwind. Let's say you've gone to the right, maybe taken a little bit of a few tacks here and there, and then you're approaching the ley line out on the right. And that's where the most important decisions on the course are made, because you can make huge mistakes out there. And one of the most basic things that beginners do is they go all the way out to the ley line right away, which is bad, because you lock yourself on that side. Then whatever shift that comes, once again, you'll lose on it. Because if you are all the way out here on the ley line, like that, then if the wind shifts right, your angle will turn up, which doesn't help you, because you're already reaching the mark. And so then you'll just be sailing off further distance. It just doesn't help you. And what that does is the boats that tacked a little bit under the ley line will be getting up, and you've sailed further out than them unnecessarily. And if the wind shifts against you, you don't really have, well, you're on the complete wrong side of the course, so you'll be losing on it, but also you do not have the space to make a tack and gain on that shift, because if you tack and then it shifts back, you'll be way over the ley line. So it's no point in doing tack, so you lock yourself out to the side. So that's why I like people to always tack a little bit before the ley line, to let yourself have the possibility of gaining on future shifts. And this is also important in a tactical point of view, because if you have other boats around you, then by going all the way to the ley line, you lock yourself there, and if someone tacks in front of you, putting you in bad air, there's nothing you can do. You can't make another tack to get out of the bad air, because then you'll just be over the ley line, sailing a longer distance. Whilst if you tack, let's say 100 meters before the ley line, then you'll be able to tack further out if someone tacks in front of you, putting you in bad air. And now again, if you're the one in front, you have boats behind you, then you also want to tack a little bit before them, because it forces them to make a difficult decision. Either they have to tack even earlier than you, putting them a little bit further in the middle than they really would want to be, giving people behind them a chance to go further out towards the ley line and gain on them in case of a favorable shift. But the other chance they have is go past you to avoid your bad air and go all the way to the ley line, which locks them out there, which doesn't give them any chance to play the game. They're just cruising through the course and letting everyone else decide their fate. All right. Now let's say that you're doing great. You're leading the race. You round the downwind mark in first position. How do you make sure the boats behind you stay behind you? And this is what we call fleet control. When you get this right, it's really easy to stay on top once you get there. So the most basic rule for staying in front is to stay between the next mark and the boats that are behind you. Because if you are between them and the mark, you can't lose on the shifts. It doesn't matter how it shifts, they'll always remain the same, or then you'll gain. And one thing that you can do is, if you round first, upwind or downwind, you can keep going straight. We have the downwind mark. You round in first position, like this. Then when the next boat rounds the mark, let's say they're 50 or 100 meters behind you, when they round the mark, it's a good move to make a tack, and then once you're between them and the next mark, you tack again to stay between them and the next mark. Another thing you can do is make a tack right away after the downwind or upwind mark, and then once the next boat rounds the mark, you tack back again to stay on top of them. Alright, I have one more thing, then I'm done. And that is to try to stay close to the rest of the fleet. So if everyone else are going right, don't go all the way left alone, because that's just a gamble. You're flipping the coin. Probably with bad odds, because there's usually some reason why everyone else is going right if you're going left. And so stay close to the fleet and play the shifts. If you're going all alone to one side, it's just a huge gamble. If there's an unfavorable shift for you, it's gonna be so unfavorable for you. You're gonna be hundreds of meters behind. So stay close to the rest of the fleet. If you happen to take a nice shift, get out somewhere and you gained on it, try to play your way back towards the fleet. So if you're crossing towards them, maybe put on a little bit of speed mode to get closer to them quicker. And that's speed mode. We'll talk about that in future training sessions or lectures. But what I mean by that is pointing the bow a little bit further away from the wind, maybe easing the sheets just a tiny bit to have more speed in the boat rather than always pointing as high as you can. Alright, that's all for today. If you have any questions, comments, send them to me or comment wherever I happen to post this. And I'll get back to you, I'll answer you and go through it. Thanks.